So they created this thing, the intelligence personnel, and I don't believe the ones at Roswell even cooked it up. I believe the ones at Alamogordo did it. They had intelligence. They had guys from the Gestapo over there who had done this same thing in Germany during the war. So they took rhesus monkeys that they were using on the rocket sled to test for acceleration. They had G-suits on these little monkeys, and they had to shave these little monkeys. There were leaks. Their security wasn't as good as they thought, you know. But they also showed newsreels at the movies that showed the rocket sleds with the monkeys on them in 1946.
And you feel that a lot of this stuff is rare now, as far as these kind of monkeys, for a reason?
Well, they used the rhesus monkeys in their early research, and then they switched to chimpanzees because the rhesus monkeys were probably harder to control. But they were short-tailed East Indian monkeys. And however, my brother-in-law's aunt was the nurse at Roswell, who was present when they brought these monkeys in from this hoax. That's not too much different than the one I saw that I had a photograph of.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
And that's interesting. That's very similar. It's amateurish. You can see rivets and stuff on there.
Absolutely. Anyway,
Now,
finish your story about the rhesus monkey, and we can continue.
Anyway, my brother-in-law's aunt was in the Bataan Death March, so she was in the Bataan Peninsula during World War II. She had eaten rhesus monkeys because that's what they had to eat in that part. They had to eat the rhesus monkeys and green chili. They had their own version of green chili, which she was used to since she was grown up in New Mexico. And after the war, after she was liberated from the camp, she came back to New Mexico and worked as an Army nurse at Roswell Army Airfield. And she grew up in Mescalero. You see, Mescalero was where Goddard's laboratory was. His test range was at Eden Valley. So my brother-in-law's aunt and her sister, Leona, wouldn't have missed a German count, 21 years old, who was in town for 2 years. You don't think those teenage girls would not notice that German count who was unmarried, who was handsome and debonair and all that stuff? So they knew about von Braun's presence in New Mexico. However, Leona had told me, and laughingly, how silly it was when they brought those monkeys in that Roswell hoax and commenced to do a dissection of the monkey as if they were dissecting an alien, because she knew it was a rhesus monkey all along. She later became a nun, and she's still a nun now. But she was the one that Glenn Dennis talks about.
Now, was this connected to Walter Haut? Did they just continue to
Walter Haut was the PIO, so he sent photographs out when they made that announcement about the alien ship that had crashed at Roswell. Now, here's a PIO who is an intelligence officer, sends out information about an alien ship and sends photographs, and it shows the aliens, which are really rhesus monkeys in G-suits. He sends them out to the area newspapers and a picture of a little flying saucer, which they'd fabricated because intelligence procedures wouldn't permit them to show a picture of a real saucer because that would be a violation of security. So they created a phony little funny book-looking little bubble on the top, and they put an auto antenna on the top, and they sent these out to the area newspapers. But then the Pentagon found out about it and hit the ceiling and sent in people to retrieve all those photographs. Well, 2 of those photographs ended up in Lovington, New Mexico, in an old newspaper office in a back room in a dusty old drawer. A newsman found them there and gave them to me. And I had them for, I guess, a couple of years before they were stolen from me. And they were stolen by a lady who lived with Jacques Vallée, the ufologist.
Oh, Mr.
And they've never been published, so that tells you that the CIA got the photos back.
Yeah, here's Jacques Vallée that's going to give us all the good information, and he doesn't open his mouth about that one, huh?
Electrocraft. Yeah, that's some phony.
Here's another phony riveted UFO for our perusal here.
Yeah, they get a bunch of guys that nothing's going to be, they're not going to show anything classified. It's supposed to look a lot like the ship that was purportedly seen by, what's his name, what's that guy that saw the chicken feeder? You know.
Oh, Adamski.
Yeah, Adamski.
George Adamski.
Yeah, George Adamski. And so they use that mythology they created. So this looks a lot like the chicken feeder. And,
yeah, next one I'd like to show the type of crowd George Adamski enjoys, or enjoyed he has his little mind control devices on his head for finding UFOs or whatever he wants to do with it. But here's something that a lot of people might be interested in. Looking very comfortable at a UFO convention is a very
Amazing
young,
Randy.
Amazing Randy. Amazing Randy and Andy. You know, just in
birds
case,
of a feather flock together.
Yes, we have our Mr. Debunker here who feels right at home with some really
That's
strange...
the criticism, the big criticism I have about Philip Klass of the PsyCops, you know, Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Paranormal stuff. And the criticism I have about Philip Klass is he keeps making paranormal claims. You see, Klass asserts that everyone who sees a UFO believes in ghosts and, you know, all sorts of paranormal beliefs. And as far as I know, I don't know too many airline pilots who've seen flying saucers thousands and thousands of times believe in ghosts or any of these other things that he says. So he's making an assertion without any kind of documentation to back it up, you see, and that to me is paranormal. So, you know, he's basically making a mystical claim, and which is out of keeping with his what I call a pseudo-skeptical idea.
Going the other end again, as far as mystical claims, we have an individual named Brother Philip here, who, in another life, his name was George Hunt Williamson.
Yeah.
You familiar with George?
This is early. What's the date on this?
You know, it's hard to say. I think this is around 1971.
Okay. See, during World War II, the German intelligence community had a whispering campaign that they were meeting with alien Venusians in Peru. And so this is just a continuation of the intelligence stuff that the Nazis started.
Here's a good photograph of our friend George Hunt Williamson.
A distinguished young American anthropologist.
Yeah, Brother Philip in a previous life here. He also was a member of the Adamski expedition on November 20th, 1952, when physical contact was made with a flying saucer. And one of the occupants, it was Dr. Williamson who made the plaster cast of the footprints of this man from outer space. So we have an early rendition of their
they get a credentialed archaeologist or anthropologist, I take it back, and that's kind of like Zachariah Sitchin, this guy who reads Sumerian and is going to tell us about the alien reptiles.
You're not going to tell me that Zachariah Sitchin is not being straight with us.
I know a lot of people who are duped by that stuff.
Oh yeah,
and I can't believe
it's very popular. Here's another. You might call it an alternate biography of George Hunt Williamson. Claimed a doctorate in anthropology and was one-time follower of Guy Ballard's I Am movement, an organization with an unsavory reputation for overlap with the pro-Nazi Silver Shirts.
Isn't that interesting?
An American subversive body broken up by the U.S. government after America entered World War II. Yeah. And now he's called Brother Philip. Let's see. Williamson organized the mysterious Brotherhood of the Seven Rays, which he presided over as Brother Philip in a remote retreat high in the Andes Mountains of South America. He was certainly an initiate, and he was given to ciphers and intrigue. This is from a book called The Secret Ciphers of the UFOnauts. But I thought that little short biography deserves some mention.